right? You excited? My name is Joe. I make a channel called It's Okay to Be Smart, and I am extremely honored to be joined by the very smart people that are up here on the stage with me. And today we're going to talk about these people are some of the best at taking really, really difficult, hard to understand things and making them not only understandable but fun.
Is Joe doing that thing where he acts like he doesn't have a YouTube channel that does this too?
I doubt it. So a quick little bit of housekeeping. If you've all seen the announcements, of course, there's just a little bit of change in how panels are going to end and go today, and we're not going to really be able to hang out afterwards as if you've been to past VidCons. So we want to make sure there's plenty of time for Q&A, so I'm going to keep an eye on my watch. I don't know if anyone else is, but we want to make sure everybody think of those questions. Make sure you ask a question when we get to the question part, but we definitely want to give you guys a chance to talk to them. This is probably the most average degrees on a panel in all of VidCon per person. It's well above 1, much closer to 2 college degrees per person. So by way of introduction, well, we go down the line here, say what you make, and if you might answer, are you an expert in anything based on what you've learned or in your life?
I am Henry Reich. I make Minute Physics and Minute Earth, and I'm an expert in drawing stick figures.
I'm Destin Sandlin. I have a YouTube channel called Smarter Every Day, and I'm an expert at changing diapers. I have 4 kids.
I'm Dr. Shini Somara. I'm the host of Crash Course Physics, and I have an expertise, I guess, in translating science into a language you can all understand.
Hi, my name is Mike. My YouTube channel is Coma Niddy, and I'm an expert at making science rhyme.
Yeah. So one of the first problems we come to, and we're going to make a video, is figuring out what people need to know, what we want them to know. Shini, I want to start with you on this. The Crash Course does have kind of a little bit of a benefit here on figuring out what people know. How does that process look like for you guys when you're approaching something huge like all of physics?
Yeah, I think when we first started, we were like, how do we contain the content for Crash Course Physics? And it was kind of simple in the sense that we just worked with the syllabus. So we were working with AP Physics. And so we knew that over a course of, say, a year of students studying physics, we were going to try and condense that down into 48 episodes. So we had the bite-sized chunks that we wanted to tackle in each episode.
Is that something that you think, if someone wants to make an educational video, that they can pull something like that? Does it help them to pull out a textbook from a course or to think about the way that they were taught it? Is that something that is a good approach for people?
Yeah, I think what we try and do with Crash Course Physics is just make learning physics a lot less intimidating. Because, I was there once upon a time when I was learning physics at school, and I just found it very intimidating. I found it daunting. And so I hope that what we provide is a supplement to what you get at school. That's a lot more relaxed, and the examples are more approachable, and it's just a fun way of learning in your own time.
So Henry, you also get to deal with literally the entire universe. See, this is one thing you can't start every video with. Beginning in the Big Bang, or maybe before that, I don't know. How do you, when you approach a subject, decide how you're going to slice and dice these topics up?
One of the first things I do is I remember that I can make more than one video, and so I don't have to cover everything all at once. And then I mainly go off of what I get really excited about, or what I think I want to share with people. And as far as using other material or textbooks or things, I tend to avoid that because when I normally read textbooks, I get really bored, and that doesn't help me get excited for things. There are some textbooks that I get really excited about, and those ones I want to make into video series someday. But in general, I think the key is to really, for a short video, to have one idea that I'm trying to get across. And there may be kind of tangential details or other things that happen, but there's one core thing that I'm trying to cover, and then to support that.
Does anybody here use any kind of restrictions, like, you know, there's been these rules that people have said in the past, I think we all agree are bad rules, make it a certain length, or do you think about the number of words, or are there other more practical things, or do you really focus on the information?
So I focus on the exploration of the topic. I don't want to, I think most of us, it's really hard if you're sitting there talking to somebody and they're just reading the Wikipedia article to you, right? And so what I like to do is my personal rule is I go do the thing. Whatever it is I'm doing, I have to do the thing. And if I get excited about it, then that naturally just comes through. But I do try to cut down the number of words I use because, you know, a lot of times if I don't leave things on the cutting room floor that I really want in the video, then I think I haven't done a good job of paring it down to make it, you know, bite-sized for the internet. Yeah.
I have a fairly consistent, I try to keep a word limit somewhere around like 400, 450 words because I write a script, FD. He says that, do I count my words? Yeah, I write a script on the computer, so I get to count my words. The computer does it for me. And then, because I have to, every single thing that goes into my video, like I have to create from scratch the visuals after I do it, and so I try to keep things as short as possible from that perspective, while still obviously getting across the main idea. And so I'd rather make two-minute videos than 1 4-minute video most of the time. But there are some topics where like this, I can't say this in less than 4 minutes, and so I need to make it 4 minutes long.
Yeah, the restrictions I use are based around music. So it has to be catchy, it has to be something that people will actually listen to and play again. And then sometimes I struggle with, am I going to have a verse, then a hook, then a verse, or is it hook, verse, hook, verse, hook, verse? Sometimes the songs get too long, sometimes they're too short, so it's really trial and error, just like science.
So,
Crash Course Physics, because we're trying to fit it in with a syllabus, and there's a team of people writing the actual script, because I'm the person that ultimately communicates it online, when I'm going through the script, if the examples don't make sense to me, then I will just, you know, it will have to be rewritten. So there have been occasions where we've all, as a team, got together and we've, you know, come up with an example to explain, I don't know, friction or whatever it might be, and it just doesn't make sense to me, it doesn't flow, and I'm like, no, wait, if this doesn't make sense to me, who gets it, then we're going to have to just change the way we approach this. So it has to feel right.
mm-hmm. So patience, like not forcing things out as well, I think. So Einstein said, if you can't...
This is a false quote.
Einstein said something. This is moving into you know, again, about dividing things up and thinking about simplifying. If you can't explain something simply, then you don't understand it well enough. But in the spirit of fact-checking, he did not actually say that. I looked it up. But he did say everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler. So use the second one if you ever share that, and not the first one. He didn't really explain what that means, though, in typical Einstein fashion. How do you know what that right level of complexity is? And Henry, I wanted to turn to you first on this, because you did a really cool project with XKCD about this Upgoer 5. And if you can talk about how, if that's influenced in minifigures.
Well, I think that the colloquial way of saying what Einstein said is don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. So once you've thrown out your baby, you've gone too far. And of course, your job in making a video is to figure out what the baby is.
Or just have more babies.
Dustin's approach.
The engineer's approach, I guess. Iteration.
Yeah, so I did a video that was kind of a collaboration with XKCD based on, they had this, is everyone aware of what Upgoer 5 thing was?
Explain it.
So basically, Randall did a comic where he explained the Saturn V rocket using only the 1,000 most common words in English, or in our language, or something like that. So basically you're limited to the 1,000 most common words in English to explain really complicated technical things, and you have to make up words for hydrogen, like air that burns, and in a big sky bag ones, you know, talking about the universe. So you try to come up with ways of explaining things that help people understand what they are. And it's a fun exercise to describe to try to describe anything in your life really in this way. And then he made a whole book out of this, and so we made a video that was kind of talking about how to go to space in the same perspective. And the funny thing about that was that I actually found that to be almost like no different from writing a regular script, because most of the scripts I write, I try to avoid jargon. Like when I have jargon in a video, it's normally written on screen, so that if somebody wants to look something up, it's there, but I just try to make it as accessible as possible anyway. But there is an online tool that you can go to check, and it will check if you have used words that are not in this list, and you can try to make things more simple. But the other thing about that was that it actually becomes challenging if you, this is a case of making things too simple. In the second half of the Einstein quote that no one ever talks about, is sometimes there is a really good word for something that most people know, and it is not as common, and if you tell yourself you can't use that, or you can't use a particular way of talking about something, you make it harder for yourself. And so this is the challenge of, you don't want to use jargon that people don't know, but you also don't want to make things, like sometimes people, it's hard to find the boundary of like, what is jargon and what is common knowledge? Or what common knowledge should I assume for the people who are watching this video? And that's hard because when you have lots of people watching, some people might be 6-year-olds and some people might be, college graduates, and then you don't have any sort of common ground to work with.
So Mike, you have museum experience. You work with real physical humans teaching and stuff too. So in that experience, and a lot of your content is definitely accessible by younger audiences. So how do you approach this question of complexity? Do you try to make it for everyone, or do you narrow that down?
Yeah, I try to make it for everyone, and it's also something that comes up a lot in the museum industry. Talking about jargon, we have an activity called, it's really weird, it's called Traxline. It's like this whole passage that you read, and it has words like Traxline is montiled in Sarastana, and it has like all of these words that make no sense. And then at the end, there's questions, and the question is, what is Traxline? And you say, well, it's this thing that's from Sarastana. So you can answer these questions without even knowing what those words are. So anytime I hear anything that sounds like jargon, I think to myself, is this Traxline? Is this going to be something that people say, but they don't know what it is? So then we have to sort of break those words down, or see if we're adding new vocabulary to people's arsenal of words. So it's a balance, and you really have to just ask people. Anytime I write a song, I send it to my friends and ask for their opinions, and that just helps with the whole process, at least for me, for finding that balance of making sure that it's as accessible as possible to everybody, or almost everybody.
So speaking of everybody, it's really hard to make videos for everybody, and I want to talk about how we think about that audience, how we define who we're making videos for. So, Shini, do you make videos with someone in mind in that sort of maybe more classroom setting when you're doing something like Crash Course?
Yeah, we know who our target audience is. We are there to provide free online education for those who are trying to understand physics. I mean, I don't know if many people actually watch it for fun, because when I sent the link, because when I sent the link to my family, my mum, who is not a physicist by any means, it's so intense, because we densely pack 10 minutes with content. So she was like, I really, I just found it really difficult. So we're not aiming for people like that who don't want to be educated in physics, and so our audience figures reflect that.
Is there somewhere you can look? Is there data? Are there numbers that tell you who those people are?
No, I guess...
They're in high school, and they're between 11th and 12th grade.
They're all using their teacher's login.
Right. Bad Alan. Is anybody from YouTube here? We can use some help on that. Destin, you start every video talking to someone I don't know who that person is in the room with you every time, but it's,
It's you. I'm talking to you.
When I watch it, it's me.
Yeah, that's right.
we all feel it right here, don't we?
So I have a formula. If I want to explain something, and I've said this like at every VidCon. So this is my formula. When I'm going to explain something, if it's difficult or simple, whatever it is, I start the video with very high personality, and I try to reach through the camera and connect with people. And I'm not really doing it on purpose. It just kind of happens that way. And then I ramp down the personality as the video goes along, as I ramp up the technical complexity. And so what that does is you meet, you interact with the person on a personal level, you gain that trust, and then they'll walk down the garden path with you, and you'll, hey, let's go look at this shiny thing, And so as you start getting more and more technical, I just slowly start ramping that up. And then somewhere in the video, I usually spike it to something very, very complex that I learned in the video. And so like somebody that is an expert in the field might actually say, oh, that's a new thing that I don't even know yet, and I want to learn more about it. So if I can start when a kindergartner is interested, and at some point somebody that's a PhD in the topic can learn something, or at least have a path they can walk down if they want, and then I ramp down and then ramp back up the personality at the end. That is the formula for how I explain things.
And is there someone in mind there, or is it
Everyone. Like I will show it to my children and say, watch this thing that Daddy made. What do you think? And they'll tell me what they learned. And then sometimes I'll send it to my grandmother or something. And so and if both of those two people can take something away from it at different points in the spectrum, then it's good. And that spike in the middle, sometimes I'll send it to people like Henry. And so, or the expert in the particular field that we're dealing with. And so my goal is to hit the whole demographic. I don't target anybody individually. The goal is just to enjoy learning.
Yeah, I think I've said this before, but you can make things that work on multiple levels, and the way I've described this is like, it's kind of like the movie Shrek, where there's like stuff for the kids, but then there's also like all sorts of jokes for the parents in there too. And in this case, instead of like kids and parents, it's people who don't know anything about what you're talking about before, or people who are educated and trained in it, and you can have references and jokes and content in there for both people and weave that through, and then you can reach, you can have something in there for everybody, and then the 6-year-old and the PhD, professor or whatever can also enjoy your video. They're going to get different things out of it, but they both will enjoy watching.
So one thing that teachers say a lot is that it really helps to learn complex things if you can figure out why they matter to you. But I feel like this can backfire. If you say fractions are important and learning how to multiply and add fractions is important, because you might be a carpenter, and I'm just going to be like, oh, I don't want to be a carpenter then when I grow up. So in terms of making complex things matter, Mike, you use music, which is really unique. Is there something special about taking these outside approaches in your experience? And how has music really helped make that matter to people?
Well, I think that music is very accessible. Everybody knows music, and music has been with humanity since the dawn of time. And by merging the two together, I know that for me growing up, when I was studying for class, my dad would always say, oh, you don't have any of your work memorized, but you have all of these songs memorized. Why don't you do something with that? And that just sort of stayed in my head as a kid, and it didn't really hit until 10 or 15 years later. But music it's catchy, it's repetitive. When you listen to it, if it's good, it stays in your head for a while, or forever. I'm pretty sure everybody here had a song playing in their head that they couldn't turn off, that mental radio. What if that mental radio was a song about science that helped you with a test? That's sort of the goal.
So it's like a cheat sheet?
Yes, a cheat sheet that nobody can see because it's in here.
Find the hook. Destin, you have made videos that I never thought I would want to know about. I'm not going to be a glass blower. Why would I want to know how glass breaks? So this is really interesting. You found I think you're maybe a master at finding things that I didn't think were oh my God, I do want to know that. I was like,
what's the question?
It's a question, an example. We talked about this before.
Yeah, we talked about
an
it.
example because of something that you've...
So I like looking at the world differently, and so like when I walk in the room, usually I don't know if it's like an ADD kind of thing. I don't think it is, but I just look at a different level on mostly mechanical things. And so your background's biology, and so when you see a biological system, you see all the genetics involved in that, and I usually see the mechanical properties of that thing. So like the dragonfly video, the musculature on how a dragonfly works was something that sticks out to me in a completely different way than it does you. So those are the sorts of things that I see. So when I see a car window, so that was the video that was coming to mind. When I see a car window, most people just think about the fact that it breaks sometimes, but how it breaks is something that really stuck out to me and something I wanted to explore. So I think that's just an outpouring of how I look at the world. I don't know, it's just my interest, I think.
Does anybody else have, approaches that they use to make things matter? And how are you folks? And Shini, both crash course and
I think that this is a question about like what is the purpose of education and why does any video matter? I mean, it really is zooming out there, like, and why does anybody care about anything? And it's either because they're interested in it or because another monkey with a brain is interested in it and they're like, oh look, this person is looking over here, I'm gonna follow it as well, right? Like when somebody points at something, we look at it. So, to me, that is what this is about. It's about either getting excited and interested in something yourself, or having somebody else just be so passionate and excited about something that you look at it with them. And it does not matter what the subject is at all. What matters is that they're excited about it and that they can convey why they're excited about it and why it matters to you. And that's why, I think that all the people who make amazing content, like I don't really, like I am interested in science stuff, but like I will watch videos about cooking and videos about other things, and to me what matters is these people love what they're doing and that they convey that excitement and love through what they're doing.
I think that's why you have the harder job, because you have to. We get to pick whatever we do. Like I'm going to do this. I'm going to light this cup on fire. We can do whatever. But you have to stick to a curriculum.
Yeah, but for me, like I studied mechanical engineering at bachelor level, and like a lot of people are kind of, I then went into television after the engineering part of my career, and a lot of people said to me, was studying engineering to PhD level necessary for going into a career in television? And I'm the same. Like I look at the world differently as a result of studying the sciences. So, whether you study it because you're